Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Book of Shadows 2 by Zakk Wylde. Now, I know that I have a lot of fans. A lot of you out there are younger than the age of 20. I know that. I read the demographics. And you've probably heard a lot of things as a newer metal fan about Zakk Wylde, about his band Black Label Society, about his time with Ozzy Osbourne. And whenever you pick up this disc and put it in, you might think, what's this? This seems really, really different. Well, I'm just going to give you a little history lesson very briefly. It's the fact that Book of Shadows 2 is obviously a sequel to the first Book of Shadows album, which came out 20 years ago. Zakk Wylde is a lot more than just a metal god. For those of you that see him as such, he's a guitar god. He is a gentleman that has various styles, and he is not afraid to put them on display. Really, some of his work with the Black Label Society has downright proven that. But time and time again, folks are still surprised by what this man is able to achieve. And Book of Shadows 2, being a sort of follow-up to that idea, is one that shows that Zakk has a side that is very deeply ingrained in the blues, that's deeply ingrained in Southern rock, and has a lot to offer. Now, if you know Southern rock, if you know bands such as Skinner, such as The Outlaws, and that variety, then this style that he is employing on this album is really not that big of a surprise. It's not that big of a jump from perhaps what you like or what you are used to. It's got that nice twang. It almost has a bit of a country register to it. And with the passing this past week of Merle Haggard, it is kind of actually fitting that Book of Shadows is dropped the same week, considering this has all of the charms that you would perhaps expect from old school country, mixed in with the Southern rock charm, and also mixed in with some bluesy flavor, similar to what would happen if this dream matchup happened. Zakk Wylde on one side of the bill, Joe Bonamassa on the other. Wait a minute. Blues of Desperation by Joe Bonamassa. Let's do a quick little mini review inside of a review. Zakk, if you're watching this, I hope you don't mind. Make the tour happen. Blues of Desperation by Joe Bonamassa. The guy is really becoming the next blues god, the next guitar god, and this is an album that certainly is aiming to prove that. A wide variety, swath of styles. Pacing is fantastic on this, and whenever Joe gets the opportunity to cut a near 9-minute long track where he just goes off for 4 minutes, Jesus Lord, is it a ethereal experience, something that you certainly need to check out. If you enjoyed Book of Shadows 2, check out Blues of Desperation by Joe Bonamassa. Believe me, they're almost companion pieces in a weird, kind of strange way, at least in my mind. You'll be satisfied. Moving back to Book of Shadows 2, 65 minutes of this style may seem a bit overbearing, but it's something that's handled. It's handled very nicely by Zakk, considering each of these tracks is able to maintain sort of a nice little pace. It's not something where he's going overabundant or over the top, trying to flurry through songs. He's instead sort of taking his time. It gives you that impression of a man who is sitting outside of his home, perhaps on a rocking chair or just on a very, comfortable place, with his guitar, strumming perhaps with a campfire out in the distance, either that or just among some friends. It's just got this nice register to it. There's a little bit of a desolation, a little bit of a loneliness factor that seems to be employed here as well. You can almost imagine that he's got a nice bottle of Jack Daniels sitting right next to him. That way he can take a drink during song breaks. Autumn Changes going into Tears of December both seem to really paint this picture extremely well, and then Getting to Lay Me Down is an early album highlight that is absolutely just blissful. This is a phenomenal song, a very, very emotional song, and if there's one thing that can sometimes seem missing from the Black Label Society's work, except in choice locations, is that it seems to always be this very furious, this torrid, this very metal pace that doesn't give you any opportunity to really take a look at the other side of the emotional coin. It doesn't give you that opportunity to really think a little bit introspectively, either that or really even have an emotional moment. This is an album that is the logical antithesis of Black Label Society's material, where there is a lot of emotion that is cooked throughout every single note, every single track of this album. Lay Me Down is a great early season example of that, as this one, if it doesn't tug on you a little bit, if it doesn't really give you that little musical moment where you kind of feel like some tears may want to form, but you're not really all that sure why. Nothing has really made you sad. If you really want to watch your emotion actually get triggered based upon music itself, Lay Me Down is a terrific example, and it's early on in this disc. We still have a long way to go, considering this is a 14-track album. Zakk spares no expense with this, and you would think that with 14 tracks it would seem as though he perhaps didn't have a filter, but the problem is that these 14 tracks are so well executed that you almost wonder if he had more, what wasn't on this disc, what didn't make the cut, because these are very well done and really employ the style very nicely. It's extremely a very well-balanced tribute to the art form that is Southern rock, that is, the blues. He's got a great sense of it. It's something that seems very deeply rooted in his blood, and no doubt is. Moving forward to tracks such as Darkest Hour and The Levee, and you're starting to get some more of these introspective lyrics out of Zakk, and you're watching the pacing slowly but surely sort of take this little roller coaster ride from that sort of middle, very cozy range to sometimes being a little bit more along the lines of a ballad. And you get that even further the further that you move along, with songs such as Forgotten Memory going into Yesterday's Tears. But whenever you get into tracks such as Sleeping Dogs near the end of this disc, you start to hear a little bit of that twinge, a little bit of that sort of raw Southern power. And really, I love the twinges of some of the country, traditionally country music associated instruments that you get with this, some of those soft acoustic guitars, some of those twangy moments that really give this album an extra little spark, an extra little dash of flavor, almost as though the man is making a Southern rock / blues themed stew, or maybe a gumbo. Perhaps we're in New Orleans, who knows? It's a very, very nice touch. Everything that Zakk is able to accomplish with this is what you would expect or what you would want from perhaps an Allman Brothers disc, either that or, like I said, the aforementioned Skinner to the Outlaws. You want to have some guitar heroics that are on there, and believe me, they are present. So Zakk has his traditional style of shredding, and then you have this, which is something that is altogether different. It's one that really showcases, as I said, more of that emotional side. Going back to the whole comparison with Joe Bonamassa's Blues of Desperation, it's something that Joe is able to do extremely well, even though at times it seems that Joe just decides to go out of nowhere and kick the shit out of a guitar. And it works, kind of like how all of your other guitar legends, perhaps even your Satrianis and your Vais, are able to take something that was just a minute ago a thrash fest, a shred fest, should I say, not a thrash fest, and then somehow emanates these tones from a guitar that almost sounds like weeping. It's just a fantastic feeling. And there are moments on this disc where Zakk does the exact same thing. That same register hits, that same emotion is really gathered and it is really expelled. This feels very much like it's a labor of love, which is what it really should be. And the fact that it does have that sort of genuine feel to it, that very honest feel to it, is what makes this album a little bit a little bit better than perhaps it was if it, had that idea of this is just being done for a buck or, to fulfill a contract. This is an album that I think you really should try. If you're a Zakk Wylde fan that only enjoys his Black Label Society shredding, take a load off. I mean, I'm just being honest here. Take a load off, get Book of Shadows 2, and just sort of sit somewhere, maybe with a window open, maybe with a glass of your favorite drink right next to you, and just sort of let the emotion, let the tones of the guitar, let the soft register of Zakk Wylde's personality just sort of wash over you and overtake you. You're going to be taken on this journey that is going to feel very one of a kind, especially considering Zakk is the voice, Zakk is the man, the myth that is delivering these legends to you. And it's one that is handled with enough grace, with enough style, and with enough honesty that it doesn't feel like just a cash-in attempt at a compilation or a cash-in attempt at taking advantage of a different style. It doesn't feel like an experiment. This feels like natural Zakk, principally because there is a side of Zakk that this is natural. This is how he was raised. This is how he was born into this land of guitar, this land of performance. I really don't want to give this album a score, and it's not out of any disrespect. It's not that I don't want this on the end of the year list. In fact, it probably will be under the best rock, pop, blues, whatever album, because that's probably where Joe Bonamassa is going to end up. Those two are going to be in heavy competition. But if I did, this is a 90 out of 100, a 9 out of 10. It's a strong album that boasts so many priceless memories and great guitar playing, great instrumentalization. The tone, the pace, and the overall flow of this disc are very nice. The flow reminds me of exactly what you kind of think about whenever you hear the word flow, and that is of a river. It does have some bumps, it has some rapids, some bends, but the flow is still one that feels very cozy, very natural, very much in tune with the remainder of the nature that surrounds it. But I want to know what you guys think about Book of Shadows 2 from Zakk Wylde. Let me know in the comments below. What emotions did you feel while listening to this disc? I want to know, because I felt a lot. I felt just a genuine lot while listening to this. And honestly, it was not something I was totally expecting. With Book of Shadows 1, you felt that emotion, but it wasn't, you weren't awash by it. You weren't completely overtaken by it. It didn't take over. With Book of Shadows 2, it takes over. Those emotions take over. Those feelings take over. These are all words that seem and sound very dirty in heavy metal, but in reality, they are words that are more important, perhaps, in this genre of music than ever before, considering you have a grander appreciation for styles, experiments, and things such as this that really take some of the core concepts of what being different and being, really exemplary at what you do are all about, and elevate them to a new level. What did you feel whenever you listened to this disc? I'm coverkillernation, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Thank you very much for viewing. If you liked what you saw, please subscribe. We got a lot coming up.